How's it going?
Good. How are you, Bart?
Pretty good. Are you playing on a Boston Harbor Encore? Or
Yeah, I do play there pretty
you're one
regularly.
of the nerdy MIT kids, right?
I wouldn't call myself nerdy, but yeah.
I'm just kidding. Shit. All right. So Boston Harbor Encore. What game size?
Yeah, so this is a 510 on a Friday night,
Okay.
and game was nine-handed, and I started with 2280 effective. I was effective stack.
Okay. So 2280 effective, 510 nine-handed. Okay. Yeah.
So the action goes, I'm under the gun, I straddle to 20. The game is not regularly straddled, but I just decided to throw in the straddle this hand.
So that's important. That's important that it's not regularly straddled. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, so it falls to the button, who is a younger Asian dude, regular at the game, who opens to 60.
Okay.
The big blind costs 60, and I'm on the straddle with 10 of heart, 10 of clubs.
Okay.
And I go ahead and raise it up to 220.
So 60 call and you go to 220. So you're putting in 3x. Little bit on the smaller side here. You're 2280 effective. So at 5, 10, 20, it's not like you're really only just over 100 big blinds deep, right? With a straddle type of situation. But I would probably tend to go a little bit larger here. If you did 4x plus a call, it'd be 300. Out of position usually goes larger in these spots. It's funny, too. We've talked about this, that actually at 100 big blinds, I remember you would see some crazy sizing from the out of position player as the first three better so that people in position couldn't set mine. I remember when I used to co-host Top Section, this was a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, some crazy sizing at 100 big blinds, like crazy, like 5x, 6x. Here you got a caller in between. And I'm not saying to go to 500 or 600, but it is a little bit small, I will say. So you go to 220, okay.
Yeah, and both call.
The button and big blind call.
Yeah.
What's the deal with the guy in the big blind, by the way?
He's a fairly tight recreational player, and he plays pretty regularly too.
Okay, so somewhere around 670 or so, maybe to the flop. Okay,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, so flop comes down 10 of spade, 9 of diamond, 8 of diamond.
10 of spades, 9 of diamonds, 8 of diamonds. So you flop top set, but obviously the board's very draw heavy. You got a queen jack straight out there and bottom end 6-7 too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so big blind checks.
Mm-hmm.
I go ahead and bet 250. And button calls at 250 and big blind folds.
Okay. So just a little thing on here too. In this particular configuration, and I'm not saying that you should do this necessarily, kind of reminds me of an earlier call here on the live stream. You could make a case where this board might be checked by your entire three betting range in this particular situation, which is interesting because if it's a check 100, I'm not 100%, I'm not saying that it is all the time, but that also includes some of your strong hands here too, which 10-10 being some of your strong hands, like queen jack suited. You think about would I check that type of holding? I just want to make a note of that. Number one, I'm not saying that I would do that. Would you be betting aces and kings here in this spot?
Most likely not.
Most likely
I'll put
not.
it,
Interesting. So if you're not betting aces and kings, then you're going to be betting some of your thickest value and some of your biggest draws, like ace jack of diamonds, king jack of diamonds types of things.
yeah, I think so.
Okay. So you go 250, button calls, big blind folds, and now we're at 1170. And of course, you are out of position. Okay.
Yeah, correct. So turn comes a 7 of spade.
Seven of spades. So it puts a one liner out there to a jack.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on this card, I check, and the button goes ahead and bets 425.
So 425 into 1170. So pretty, not huge, right? I mean, obviously you have a call here. If you're behind to a jack, you've got 10 outs to improve because, you have top set. There certainly are a fair amount of, well, it's interesting because it's a multi-way type of setup. I'm not 100% sure here what's going to happen. I just will say that just as a very, very simple approach from afar here, if your opponent is decent and is playing the way that he should be playing, he actually will have less Jack X here in this setup, in a multi-way setup going post-flop, than if it were heads up. And the reason why I say that is because if he were to hold like a hand like, well, I guess if he had Jack 9 or Jack 10, they all have to be continues anyways. I'm just trying to think of like pair plus straight draws. King Jack, open-ended Ace Jack. Actually, you know what? I take that back. He probably still does have all the Jack X. I was saying that it had to be tighter with the next to act call, but even still, all these pair plus straight draws have to call. So I actually take that back. So he still does have a lot of, he still has a lot of Jack X. Obviously, you have a check call here, and you hope that the board pairs. I would say, like in this spot, he shouldn't really ever have a 6 here unless he had like a front door, something like A6 of diamonds, if he even defends with that pre. Just, obviously that's the bottom end of a straight here. So there's that. I mean, actually, I think what I was going to say about Jack X probably holds true for like a 6. Like he would have more 6s here somehow if the configuration were heads up post flop than what it is multi-way in this spot.
Yeah, I agree.
So check 425. I assume you call.
Yeah, I caught that.
All right. So 850 plus 1170, what, 2020? Something like that. And it looks like you've got maybe what, like 13 to 1400 left?
Yeah, I have it like 1385 or around there.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of washed over that. I mean, I think you definitely have too much money to consider this like on the turn, if you're considering a check jam on the turn. I think you still probably have too much money left. I mean, I wouldn't start thinking about that until maybe 1/3 of maybe like 800, something like that. So you've got like over 13 and change. So I think this is a square call. Okay, so 2020 to the end to the river here.
So river came a queen of spade.
Queen of spades. So 10 of spades, 9 of diamonds, 8 of diamonds, 7 of spades, queen of spades. So the 7 of spades brought a backdoor spade draw, right, on the turn. And now the backdoor comes in. Not sure exactly how relevant that would be. And again, this is actually, okay, so you have a situation here, going back to what I said about originally and what I said about Jack X, is that if you were heads up against this guy and the big blind, and he's playing the way he's supposed to be playing, and the big blind was not in the hand, he would have more backdoor flushes here. But because it's multi-way on the flop, he is absolutely not supposed to peel with something like ace 9 of spades or ace 8 of spades to your c-bet because of the guy behind him, because it's 3 ways on the flop. Whereas heads up, of course, he always has those continues. So there's a little bit of that. Should have less backdoor flushes here in this particular spot. 2020, I assume that you check.
Yeah, I checked, and the button pretty quickly jams for a little under 14.
Like 1380, something like that. What bluffs does he have here? I think this is even more of a clear-cut case where we can probably all agree that he is most likely never jamming with worse as played. If worse is ever, for value, right? Like if worse was ever played this way for value, I don't think it jams here. That it would have to be like what, a slow played set on such a wet board on the flop that bets turn and jams on the river with a one-liner to a jack and backdoor spades coming in. That is probably unlikely. So I think that we can all agree that certainly is the case. People saying king jack of spades. Of course, king jack of spades was already a straight on the turn, right? King queen of spades. Sure, that could be appeal. King queen of spades is not possible because the queen of spades comes at the end. I'm just reading here from the chat. And again, T. Krupta says ace 9 of spades, ace 8 of spades. Again, I go back to what I said 2 or 3 minutes ago. Those should not be calls on the flop. Now, maybe they are, but that's why I think that this is slightly different than if it were just heads up. If it were just heads up, the button does have more backdoor flushes, but ace 9 of spades shouldn't be a call with that guy behind here on the flop. So what are we looking at here, Boach? What do you think this guy's got for bluffs? because a jack is a straight. Now, if he had diamonds, obviously if he had some sort of jack X or 6X, that's a straight too. And then what else is like left here? Like turning a queen into a bluff with Broadway diamonds here?
Could be like ace, king, king, queen, ace, queen of diamonds. Those are like missed diamonds combos.
Those are missed diamond combos, but then you'd have to go back to, well, I mean, you'd have to go back to pre, ace, king of diamonds, right? You got a big blind calling, get the button opening, get the big blind calling, and then you 3-betting. I mean, if I were the button, I'd 4-bet with ace, king of diamonds all day long, and there would be a frequency of me 4-betting with ace, queen of diamonds for sure in this late configuration stance with the guy in the middle, so there's that. Not only would he have to play it passively pre, he'd have to play it this way that he rivers, top pair and turns it into a bluff, which, if the guy's thinking player, he might feel like he might need to do that. But all those things are things that I sort of feel go against you. If we're really reaching for ace, king of diamonds that doesn't 4-bet off pre, which should, and somehow queen X of diamond types of holdings, king, queen of diamonds, which is a combo draw on the flop that just calls, bets turn, and then turns it into a bluff in the river. You can see how I'm stretching here, right, Bosch?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think about queen, queen?
Of queen, queen?
Yeah. Do you think he would like find the jam here with queen, queen?
That would bet the turn. Queen, queen, I'm just trying to think about, would queen, so again, though, if I'm saying that ace, king suited here is a 4, you guys aren't that deep, man. You're only 100 bigs deep. Like, aren't you getting in? Don't you want to pile queen, queen in pre on the button?
Yeah, I guess could.
I mean, the big blind called in between. If I'm talking about 4-betting ace, king suited here, remember, you started at 2280, right? And it's 5-10-20. He opens the button. Guy calls. This rec calls in the big blind. You 3-bet. I just feel like I'm 4-bet getting it in there with ace king suited and queen queen. Your question about having, so there's that, and then how often does queen queen bet turn on 10-9-8-7? I mean, the thing about me holding queen queen, if I ever was in the spot with queen queen, and I got there on the turn on the button, I didn't 4-bet pre, and then you check to me, I don't know, I feel like I wouldn't even be betting for protection on the turn. I'd be starting to turn my hand into a bluff because I don't know how often you're like, what am I trying to protect against? Like, if you're a decent player, it's not like you're c-betting ace, ace king here on this board. And you even said that you might not even like c-bet like aces and kings. I mean, I guess once in a while you could make a case for betting queen queen on the turn for value to get, get called by your range of draws, but there's a lot of stuff going on that like leans me towards him not having those hands. One of the biggest things is that it's a 100 BB setup in a late position configuration here. So that's why I'm having a hard time with this one at the end where my reaction was a fold. You lose, of course, to queen queen too. That's another thing, right? So what was your thinking here?
Well, I think like he could have some bluffs, but I also got like a set, so.
What bluffs though?
Yeah, I guess maybe I wasn't thinking out that much.
It's just one of those. And again, I keep saying too, the fact that he's in there with another guy in there on the flop should decrease those backdoor flushes. I mean, obviously that's less value, but he still has a lot of Jack X here too. And it's not like you guys are all that deep. So, I mean, if I have Jack X here, it's just like, yeah, the backdoor flush came in, but what am I not going to bet? You know what I mean? What'd you end up doing?
So yeah, before I give you the review, I was actually the villain in that hand. I'm just calling it from the opponent's perspective.
Didn't you do this before, Bosch?
No, it wasn't me. No, No.
So you're the villain here.
I'm the villain here. Yes.
So okay, so let me try to figure out here. So do you want to tell us what you have on the button, or do you want to say, all right, so why don't you tell me what the guy in the big blind did? first.
Yeah, so the guy, or the older lady actually, she ends up tank calling with her 10-10.
So the lady, lady calls with 10-10. Before you do a reveal, let me ask you this question. Did you still think that on the turn when you bet 425 into 1170 that she had like aces and kings?
From my,
After she called, I mean.
yeah, I don't think she's gonna fold aces and kings on the turn. Like she seems to me as a like pretty recreational player that doesn't like think all that much. So I wouldn't say she strikes me as the type of player to fold aces and kings on the turn.
So if you're bluffing here, are you trying to bluff her off of a lot of aces and kings on the river? If she arrives there with them.
I think if I pull the bluff on the river, I could get her off aces and kings.
And then, of course, another hand that she might have that she might have run into is queens, right? I mean, that makes sense.
Right.
It doesn't sound to me like you're ever, again, we don't know what you have, but she probably isn't necessarily playing jacks this way as just necessarily a check call. It's interesting because you get into a situation where if you have a jack here, Bosch, you might, I mean, you only have 1380. So you're saying, well, I think I can bluff her off her aces and kings. But what if you have a jack and you have value? Does that mean that you size down at the end here?
No, I think the only bet sizing I choose on the river is probably just all in because I only got 2/3 left.
But do you see what I'm saying though? Like you could actually vary your river sizing based upon what you want to accomplish here. And it's a super sort of, it's a hard live node lock. It's it's a live node lock in a sense of like you could be like, well, if I move all in, she's going to fold out one pair of hands. So if I have value, I don't want to move all in. But if I have a bluff, I do want to move all in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that I can make a case for that. Yeah,
All right. So she called with 10-10. What did you have?
I had Jack Jack, no spade.
So you have Jack Jack. Okay. So do you think that she should have folded at the end?
Well, I'm not sure. I think like she probably should have folded. But I mean, again, given like her player image, I don't think she's the one to make the fold. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing too that I find a little bit interesting with these stack sizes is how you want to shape Jack Jack on the turn, because you went like 1/3, right, which left like 2/3 on the river. So you could make a case for going larger so that you could leave less on the river, so she would get better pot odds. But I could also see a situation where if you went larger, like more like half pot or 700, she might fold out those high over pairs. So it is
Yeah, I
interesting.
think in hindsight, I could have bet 600 on the turn and leave 12 on the river. So it's like half pot for turn and river.
Now, Bosch, lastly, I will ask you. Now, maybe you didn't know who this player was, but you could definitely make a case for getting in Jack Jack here at 100 big blinds pre button versus big blind and straddle squeeze. She showed up with 10-10. Maybe that's the bottom of her range, but did you think about four betting pre?
Yeah, I think I definitely do Jack Jack like sometimes four bet, sometimes just call. Against more of like regulars, I think I would probably make a case for four betting more. But against like more of like a recreational like this lady, I think like her range is probably stronger than the regular three bet range.
But you would have four betted ace king suited and queen queen though, right?
Yeah, I would have.
Which is what I went back to when we talked about this from the reverse. Again, I didn't know Bosch was going to do this to me, but that's why I said, like, I don't see like, if you're saying like ace king of diamonds or ace queen of diamonds are the primary bluffs, that's a huge stretch if you're playing out of the straddle spot, because there's got to be some four betting frequency and then turning a queen into a bluff and all that jazz. I probably would have folded if I was your villain at the end. But I mean, there's nothing you can do. I mean, what are you going to do about it, right? You got the best of it. So I don't think you did anything wrong, So, all right, Bush. If you see me, I'll be there tomorrow. Come by and say hi, but I'll definitely be there tomorrow. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it.